Welcome, sons and daughters of Odin, to another reading of the Ancient Northern Oracle for a Monday morning, the start of the working week for those who do the 9 to 5 grind. So here we go. I'll get straight into it. Now, let's see what the weird offers us today. Oh, what is this? This is Algiz, the elk, or also known as the swan, the wings of the swan. So this is a protection rune. It is the rune of protecting from external malevolent energies, but also cultivating your own protection mechanisms. It's very easy to rely on external forces, bodies, people, whatever it may be, for protection, and this rune is good for that. So as you see, it's the horns of the elk, and the dominant male elk was the lord of the forest. And it's good to invoke this rune when you want protection from something malevolent. However, there is a flip side to it as well, of course, with the runes. There's a duality. If you rely on this too much, or you rely on it exclusively to protect you, then you let your internal defences down. And it's very important that we cultivate our own defence mechanisms, whatever they may be, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. And when we have our own mechanisms in place internally, then if anything external fails, then we have that last line of protection. Not saying that this will ever fail you, ever. Never has for me. However, being strong internally, having a second wall of defence is good. For instance, what sprang to mind was in the ancient times, when they built castles, for instance, they would have an outer wall and then they'd have an inner keep. So if the outer wall was ever breached, then they could retreat to the inner keep and be protected. And usually they could withstand long sieges and any type of bombardment or attack. So that is a good strategy to employ for yourself. Algiz is strong and will never fail you. You only fail yourself. And invoke the energy of the elk. When you think of an elk, it's a very large, powerful, majestic creature. And the energy of the elk was strong in the ancient cultures of the north in particular, because the dominant male was, of course, the male that mated with all the females in the herd. And the ancient people never hunted the dominant male. He remained untouched, because if they took him out, then the whole herd would dwindle. Basically, there'd be no more deer after that. So the dominant male was always protected in the forest, and he was the strongest of the herd, literally. And when you think of an elk, if you Google a picture of an elk, you'll see how they're big, majestic horns, and they're literally crowned with the forest. Looks like a big tree on their head. Very majestic creatures. But also the wings of the swan, and that indicates divinity. And by divinity I mean, of course, gods, but also the wings of the swan were thought to be the wings that the valkyrie flew upon. So you'll in popular Viking culture that's around now, the pop culture Viking aspects, the valkyrie is present, and it's depicted as a winged female, and the wings were said to be swan wings. But this also represents the feet of a bird taking flight, when you see the feet hanging below the bird when they're flying. The swan, also the raven, springs to mind. Hugin and Moon in thought and memory, but I'm getting a little bit distracted here, so I'll stick to this rune in particular. So if you want any sort of divine connection or protection or spiritual guidance and strength, then Algiz is the rune for you. Draw it on places in particular where you want protection. I have it drawn on all the boundaries around my property, and doors and windows, even doors of drawers and cupboards and things like that, because most people do not realise that any doorway within any sort of property is not only a physical doorway, but it's an opening for the spirit world. A lot of people get scared about, oh, what's hiding in the cupboard, what's hiding under the bed, and that's not an irrational fear. That's our own true intuition springing into action, saying to you, be careful of that opening, because things can come through. And that's why people are scared a lot of leaving cupboards open at night, or children are scared what's under the bed, because they are literally doorways for things to come through. So put it everywhere. If you're having trouble sleeping, for instance, put it on your cupboard doors, your drawer doors, on the head of your bed, on the end of your bed, and you'll find that you'll have a much more peaceful sleep. That's all I'm getting for this rune today that I need to tell you. Of course, there is much more to tell with these runes than I tell in these videos, much, much more. And if you would like a personal reading, a private reading, I'll provide contact details on the description of this video. Please like and subscribe. I'm a YouTuber now, I have to say all that stuff. And if anyone has any questions, just pop them in the comments. I'm happy to answer them. And yeah, have a great Monday, and I will be back again tomorrow. But the energy of Algiz is a great way to start the week. So in the meantime, hold the heathen hammer high.